everybody, it's Camo Dave here. I want to do a little rant today on the 10th of July 2020. There's a certain Nomad that I do watch, that I watched for many years now, and he did a video today where in the middle of the video he kind of tries to address some misconceptions that his viewers seem to have of him potentially being a moocher, meaning somebody that goes around to friends and has them do work on his vehicle or vehicles, and he doesn't compensate them properly, or he uses it to avoid having to pay for shop repairs or whatever like that. He claims that these are friends that he uses for his solar panels, for his wiring, for his brakes, for whatever, for various upgrades and repairs on his vehicles. And he says, look, I pay the guys that do the work. I often help them do the work, but they are properly compensated, and he's not mooching, okay, believe him, I believe him. But why and how do his viewers get the impression that he's, basically having friends do the work for him, and how do they get that impression that he's mooching? And he kind of looks at the audience and blames the audience in a way, like, why are you people getting the wrong impression? Well, sometimes it's best to look in the mirror and just say, what am I doing in my videos that is conveying that image that I am mooching off my friends? And that's why I always talk about focus groups. When you do a political campaign, when you do an ad, when you do a television show, it's often best at the very end, after you've done your product, before it goes out to the public, to have a bunch of people of various demographic and ethnic groups and ages and whatevers to look at your video or your product, your commercial, your political speech, and critique it. Because there's a lot of things that you're doing in that speech. A politician, for example, will think he's giving a speech that's wonderful, and then a lot of people will watch it, and then they'll say, the way he looked, the way he said this, the way he did that, the way he phrased this, it obviously backfired. And I see that with a lot of YouTube nomads. They're trying to present a message about themselves and all this other stuff, and for whatever reason, whether it's their hair, the way they speak, the way they look, darting eyes, just why they're even saying it in the first place and defending themselves, causes more and more people to really wonder if you're actually trying to say, I'm not a moocher, but you're actually somehow backing into it, that because you're saying you're not, that must mean you are. There's a lot of complicated stuff like that. And I honestly have to say that people like this particular Nomad that I was watching the other day, denying that he's, denying, and then you're almost saying he's reinforcing the fact, or he's actually bringing up the fact that he's a moocher, or potentially a moocher, that people weren't even thinking that. Maybe if 1% of your audience thinks you're a moocher, and then you start saying, I'm not a moocher, I don't like the anti-mooch comments, or the pro-mooch comments, or whatever, then you're going to get more and more people out of that. Instead of 1% now, or 3% are going to think you're a moocher, just simply because you talked about it. I'm just saying, sometimes the best thing to do is leave it on the cutting room floor and never put it out there. You got to realize too, when you're a YouTuber, especially and a Nomad and all that stuff, is there's always going to be that 1 or 2 or 3% of people that don't like whatever you do and are going to criticize you. And maybe it's best just to ignore them and just move on and plow through with your videos and don't even address them. To address that minority group that is driving you crazy and saying you're a moocher is actually making more and more people think you're a moocher. So, what do I say to this particular Nomad, who I almost dropped his name. I've done this video here. I have done this about the 10th take of this video because I keep dropping the guy's name and I go, I don't want to mention his name. All I'm saying is take a look at the mirror, you guys, you Nomads. If a lot of people are coming back to you in your comments with ideas, with views of yourself that aren't true, that aren't the way you really are, and you know that, there's got to be something in your videos that is making them think that. And that's why maybe if you can't get a focus group, get a couple people, maybe some of your family and friends, to sit down, watch your videos sometime, and you'll say, hey, every time you say this, every time you do this, every time you do this, you're reinforcing a negative that you're not aware of. So, why people will think a negative thing about you when you think you're projecting positives. It's very confusing, and you know, sometimes again, you think too much, you talk too much, and the denials just create more questions. Sometimes it's confusing. So anyway, this particular nomad, I'm pretty sure he's not a moocher, but the fact that he kept saying today that he's not a moocher and was addressing that small percentage of people that think he is, I think he probably did himself more harm than good. Just saying. All right, folks, that's it for today. Rant over. Oh my goodness. You all have a wonderful Friday. It's the 10th of July, 2020. Lang and